Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. Yes, we are bringing back the one and only and legendary investor, Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great. Always great to be here with you.
Absolutely. So we've already talked about episode number 2, kind of the 5 things to watch out for that could surprise us that Ray Dalio has identified over history, not U.S. history, but world history. And now we're going to talk about the 6 things he recommends doing. And I will admit to not following all 6. So we can talk about that. And again, folks, this is all based on a new book that Ray Dalio has out there, The Changing World Order. Both Anna and I got it. It's sitting right next to us. I thought that was hilarious. So what do you want to talk about these 6 things?
Sure. I think just as a high level recap, I mean, you must go listen to the first video. You must. But there's 5 major things that could be major disruptors that could impact how we invest. So go listen to the first video to hear about them. But one of the things that he was asked as well is, with all these things happening, and right now we're sitting here with mass inflation, what are you doing as an investor to kind of mitigate that risk? And how do you recommend that the average American investor, take a protective position and even maybe an aggressive position as to what's coming? So he gave 6 key points. The first is don't be in cash. So let's talk about that one first.
Yeah, that's the one that I will admit to. Now on a percentage basis, it's not a meaningful number, but I have more cash today than I've ever had because I'm like, I don't know what's coming. So that's a true statement.
It is really interesting. And I think when you're a billionaire and you've got a lot, I'm sure they're in some cash, but again, it's a percentage of what you have. I think the key there is when there's inflation, the purchasing power of your cash is essentially deflated. So if you're sitting there on $1 million cash, you're going to have quite a bit of that that's going to be deflated. And so, is it better to invest in assets that are going to stay stable value or increase in value? So what I think about, Michael, is, okay, should I buy more silver and more gold right now? Now, granted, silver and gold is somewhat volatile with changes in economy, but it's kind of a protectionary move, something that doesn't tend to lose value when cash does. So thinking about some gold and silver, our favorite is real estate, right? Because when you have real estate that's in high demand and low supply, like single family housing, multifamily housing right now, you are going to have an asset that when inflation goes up is going to go up in value. So you don't want to sit on a whole bunch of cash just hoping things crash, because your cash is being devalued as you go.
Yeah, this is one, again, I go back to, again, Ray Dalio is the guy that, him and Warren Buffett, but Jamie Dimon, someone else I'll look at occasionally. He's got, I think, $1 trillion in cash. No, not him personally, but his company, right? JP Morgan.
Wow.
And again, this is probably 6 months old, so he may have changed, but he's like, hey, I'm going to sit on this. Yes, I know inflation's eaten it away. But what basically Jamie was saying is, hey, in the next 18 months, cash is going to be important again, and I'll buy something at a discount, right? So he'll lose 6% to inflation, but he'll get a 25% discount. I think back to Warren Buffett in the Great Recession. When Warren Buffett extracted a king's ransom from Goldman Sachs, he got like 10% this and warrants at that. And he made $1 gazillion because he had cash.
Well, right. So there's this balance, right? Exactly like you said. I mean, I went through the pandemic with hundreds and hundreds of units and tenants maybe not being able to pay. So again, like you, I have more cash now than I ever have because I want to be able to weather a storm. We now see, the Omicron variant coming out, and it's like, okay, it's resistant to vaccine. Is it better or is it worse? And could it cause more shutdowns and more eviction moratoriums? And if it does, I better have some cash to be able to pay our mortgages. And so, there's this balance, I think, between don't have so much that it's all sitting under the mattress and you're losing money. But you've got to have enough to protect yourself and have, what most economists will say is have at least 3 to 6 months living expenses and at least 3 months of expenses for your properties to cover operational expenses. So I think if you have that, at least that gives you some protection. But then if you have assets you can buy, don't just not buy today, buy some today, continue to buy, and then hold enough for when things go on fire sale if you have it.
Yeah, I'm buying every great deal I can, right? I usually talk about good and great, right? Today's a great deal, right? If it's a great deal, I'm buying it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So number 2, he talks about know how to balance a portfolio. And this is where Ray Dalio wins. He has this thing called an all-weather portfolio, which if you don't know what that is, go look it up on YouTube. He talked about it like a decade ago. It's a very complex combination of lots of stuff. So again, most people can't repeat that. You don't have the machines and algorithms to do that. But again, when you think about a balanced portfolio, what does that mean to Anna?
It means really having things that are going to do well when other things are not doing so well. So you don't want all your eggs in one basket, right? Which is a typical investment advisory thing that we say, diversification is important. And it is, whether you're all in the stock market or all in real estate or both, you can diversify. So for me, because I'm not in the market right now, I'm just not, I choose not to be. I'm pretty much all in real estate and, some precious metals, gold and silver, for example. So gold and silver is kind of this protectionary asset, not something that I'm investing in because I think I'm going to have appreciation forever. It can go up and down, but it gives a little bit of balance to if the dollar, is devalued because of inflation, I've got something to offset some of those dollars that's going to be protected. I think of my investments and I think I'd encourage our listeners to do the same, to think about, I need a bucket for income that covers my financial outlay every month. It meets my financial needs. It gives me financial freedom because it covers my expenses, right? Whether that's active or passive, job or real estate, whatever it is, I need income. That's number one. Because if you can't make your bills, then you're not going to do well with wealth building. The second thing is you have things that you buy for growth and appreciation. You're buying it, even though it may not give you cash flow, it may be risky and not protect your assets, but it's going to go up in value. But it could go really down in value too. And then I have things that are going to preserve my wealth. So income, growth, preservation. I want to buy properties that give me all of it if I can. And a lot of cash flowing real estate has all 3 of those benefits plus taxes. But some properties that I buy, Michael, people are like, I can't believe you paid that. How can you be cash flowing? And I'm like, I'm not cash flowing much, but I bought it because it's a long-term hold. It preserves my capital. It's going to slowly have mortgage pay down. It has tax benefits, and it's not going to cost me a lot of money to own. And I can build on it in the future. So in the future, I'll add more units. I'll produce more cash flow. But that asset is not a good asset if you're looking for cash flow.
Right.
I have a lot of them that are all cash flow, and they may or may not go up in value, but it doesn't matter. I got my cash flow properties. I've got my growth properties. I've got my preservation properties within different asset classes.
I like it. The third one is really eye-opening for me, and it's been so true, but I didn't appreciate it until the last cycle. Wealth isn't lost as much as it is transferred to others. Woo!
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This is so true. Do you want to be someone that the economy wipes you out? I was someone in 2009 that the economy pretty much wiped us out, totally blindsided, which is why I became a student of the economy, right? So now I want to be on the side that if there's inflation, I own assets that are going to go up in value. I own something that cash flow is going to allow me to pay for those expenses. So that's an example of the renter that lives check to check to check to check, that doesn't have any assets, and their expenses are going up faster than their incomes are. They're losing money and they're losing wealth. Where if we're investing in assets that we can, have those higher asset values, have those higher incomes, that wealth is being transferred to us to some extent. And that may sound bad, but it's the reality of, do you want to protect yourself and grow up when the economy allows that wealth transfer? Or do you want to be someone that the money's stolen from through inflation and taxes? I want to be, on the other side that I was on in 2009.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those ones, if you haven't really experienced a down cycle, it's really obvious in a down cycle. At least it has been for me, because I've seen 2 cycles that just went parabolic and nuts, and it was a party for everyone. And then at some event it wasn't. And then like 90% of the people failed, but 10% did great.
Yeah.
When everybody's winning, everybody's winning. So yeah, I think that's a good one.
And one thing that Ray said is that these are kind of these 1 in 100-year things. And that like everything that we see happening over 100-year period, most of it is rapidly accelerated in 10 and then the fallout and the minor changes over the next 90 years you see.
Yeah.
I would argue, and I think he argues, that we are in one of those 10-year periods now where there's massive transfer of wealth going on, and it will continue.
Yeah. Number D or 4 for me is something I say all the time. You can't time the markets, right? It's time in the market, not timing the market.
Perfect.
That's a big quote of mine. Yeah.
So important. So we need to continue to buy. Don't get scared. And, we're sharing this stuff with you not to make you scared and say, I'm never buying real estate. We're saying real estate is something to buy that's going to help you through all of these things. But there's always time to do a great deal, as we say. Yeah. And so there are deals that I'm buying today that don't look like a good deal if I was like killing it with lots of properties, creating massive income. But if I can do a great deal that adds asset preservation and some slow equity and a long-term hold, that's a great deal for today. And when things turn down, then you can scoop up those deals that have mass upside and mass income again.
Yeah, totally get it. Here's one that you and I have preached for as long as we've been talking. Always spend less than you earn. Folks, tattoo that one on your arm.
Yes. And while it is truth that you can never save your way to wealth, if you don't learn to live below your means and have expenses that are less than the income, there's no extra in order to grow your portfolio or protect you when the expenses go up. So it's a must. You have to learn to do it.
Yeah. I mean, go back to your story of moving from a big house in Texas to ultimately to a fourplex, right? That's the cheat code to wealth. Live for free or almost free. Take all that savings, pour it into savings, buy assets. Then you buy your big palatial pad after you retire financially free. So
absolutely
wonderful. And then the final one, productivity is important.
Yes, this is a big one, right? And I want to dig more into this. I mean, when we talk about GDP, nations that have higher GDP are going to produce more opportunities and more wealth for their countries. As soon as your GDP starts to really get low, nations start to struggle. What's the same thing? So that trickles down to each of us, but it also impacts each of us in our own personal wealth building. So if I stop being productive and I just buy things and think, okay, I'm smooth sailing, I'm not going to buy anymore, we're just gonna ride this out, you're going backwards. If you're not being productive and continuing to grow wealth and grow income, you're not going to grow, but you're also going to go backwards because everything else going on around you can cause major disruptions and cause your expenses to go up significantly, and you're not ready for it till it's too late.
Yeah. This is one that's constantly, again, in the Silicon Valley, we obviously have a lot of tech, new innovations that come and go and make it, don't make it. I helped launch products from 0 to 100 million several times. And it's all about productivity. It's all about product. So it's kind of in my DNA to kind of look and seek that, where does AI come in all of this? Where does automation and robots and metaverse and all these things that are out there and talked about? Yeah. It is, it's never boring. It's never boring.
Right. And as automation happens and these tech disruptions happen and people are forced out of jobs, what does that do to unemployment long-term? What does that do to our economy nationally long-term? Those that are in tech and automated are going to do really well, where a lot of, workers may not. And so what does that do politically? Does it change us from, more, democratic consumerist to more global socialist? I don't know, but we got to think forward in those things.
Yeah. Oh, Ray Dalio, you wrote another he writes big books, this guy.
I got this thing this week and I was like, oh, I can't wait to get his book and look at it. And when I saw it's like 500 pages, I'm like, I read really quickly, but I thought there's no way I'm going to get through this as quickly as I want to.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy and I want to see what he says.
Yeah. Reading for me is work. It's almost as bad because I don't read well. So yeah, I'm not a fast reader. So this will be heavy lifting for me. So in the end, Anna, how can people follow you, get part of your world?
Great. You can always follow me here every Wednesday and on our playlist. You can follow me at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Anna REI Mom Kelly. My website's reimom.com for coaching and mentorship. And if you're looking for passive investments, greaterpurposecapital.com.
Thank you very much, Anna. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Michael.